Welcome, 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 everyone. I am Dr. Amber Joy Daniel, and it is my distinct honor and it is my delight to be speaking with a very special young lady today. How young? Da-da-da. That's the question to be asked. Is she 18? Is she 28? Or is she more? Is she less? Less is going to be a crime, so we're not going to say that. But guys, it is my real distinct pleasure today to introduce you to a name that you may know, a name that you may not know. But let me tell you a little bit about who this impressive young woman is. Leah Brighton is an award-winning business leader and executive communication coach. Now, she's been recognized with a number of honors, some of them including some very high-stakes stuff, guys, like the Queen's Golden Jubilee Medal and Top 40 Under 40. Now, anybody who knows that getting on these lists, just to be considered for the award, is a big deal. And so to win the award, Leah is no small pleb. And so it really is an honor to get to have this conversation with her. For those of you who are really more into the academics of things, like what does she really have? What does she really hold? Well, she has her master's. It's a master's of science in speech language pathology from the Faculty of Medicine, as well as she's got degrees in linguistics and psychology. With over 15 years experience in speech, science, policy, executive coaching, and executive search, she's got decades in the industry, guys. Leah has partnered with top companies, including Instacart and Wealthsimple, leading hiring across Canada, the US, and the UK. And so now that we are speaking, and you could hear a little bit of my British Caribbean accent, now she's global. Let's just call it global, right? You're speaking to Leah, the global elite here. Okay, she might want to be called elite. But in terms of her service, we're talking to an elite search talent here, someone who has worked in language, the mind, the persona, with all of the underpinnings, the understandings of what makes speech work and not work. And I would say that her superpower is to help executives collapse 30 years of floundering to find their voice, find their worth, and get that compensation package that is commensurate with what they deserve. She'll collapse that for you guys in months. 3 months, give her 3 months, give her 6 months, and see what she will do for you. And so without further, guys, I've got a whole lot more I could tell you about this young woman, a whole lot more. But let me just pause there. And as we have the conversation, you'll get to know more. Please open your hearts, LinkedIn, open your hearts, Facebook, open your hearts, YouTube, open your hearts, anybody listening to the replay, watching live, to Leah Brighton, who is phenomenal. Welcome, Leah.
Oh my goodness. Dr. Amber Joy, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. And I always love our conversations. So excited to have this chat today and dive into a topic that I know that you're so passionate about, which is trans resilience.
Transilience.
Well, how critical that is in life, but certainly within your career as well. But would love to, dive in and kind of answer any questions that you might have and, learn more about the work that you also do.
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions for you because your story, your life story is a story of transilience. And that really is how you quantum jump. And I dare say, despite the odds, to get to a destination that is beautiful, a destination that you've created and curated. And so, guys, we're about to go real deep. So I encourage you to open your heart, not just your ears and your mind, but your heart, because we're going to go down a journey of transilience, and you'll see how it worked with Leah, and hopefully stir your heart for how transilience, quantum jumping, can work for you. So Leah, tell us from the very beginning. Now, you are an executive for the Asian.
Oh yes. So in my nonprofit, my community work, I founded Canada's first adoptee organization that was founded by an adoptee for other adoptees. So it was the first that was ever established here in Canada, which is where I live, where I was adopted to, and it's the Asian Adoptees of Canada. So we have members across from, Korea, China, Vietnam, also the Philippines, Thailand, all across Asia, Southeast Asia. And it's a community that's incredibly important to me, from, as you alluded to, I was born in South Korea, and I actually grew up in an orphanage. So most adoptees, when they are adopted, usually they're under the age of 1, or 2 is kind of the upper age that most individuals are when they are adopted. But I grew up and lived in my orphanage until I was almost 5. I was 4.5 years old, which is a very long time, quite a long time. Certainly, as a speech pathologist, right? I worked both with adults. So I worked with patients who had, Parkinson's and dementia and Lou Gehrig's disease. But I also worked quite a bit in pediatric care as a clinician in my first career. And so anybody who knows or has worked within kind of developmental or in adult development, child development, the first 5 years are really important. Like they are like the core, kind of foundation that establishes a lot about, who you are, obviously your language, etc. So my first language was not English. It surprised a lot of people, but English is my second language. I didn't start learning English until I was, 4.5. But so that was, the onset of my life journey, we'll say. And
really beautiful. No, you're good. So the whole idea of quantum jumping, I know that I live in Ohio, so I came to the States as a bride. At a ripe age of 36. At that ripe age. So I grew up with my parents. I had the opportunity of learning English from the time I was born. As I came here in my late 30s, and still culture shock is a thing. I still navigate just the, we understand that meanings are in words, not people. And so having to understand the meanings behind the words and even the words themselves, many who count themselves out from Transilience will say it's too hard. They would say it's too hard. They'd say the world is against me. It would almost be an excuse why they couldn't prosper, they couldn't thrive. Yet you're telling me that everybody else, how did that feel? To see everybody else come later and get adopted sooner, and there you were, still at 4.25. At 4.5 it happened, but there are those who would say, the problems I'm facing, the reason Leah is successful is because she had nothing to overcome.
Right.
I had stuff to overcome. That's why I can't make a quantum leap. But you're telling us a different story. So what was that like, Leah? In your 4-year-old heart, your 3.5-year-old heart, every time it didn't happen for you, what gave you hope overcoming that challenge? Yeah.
Right. I wouldn't say when I lived in the orphanage, I was like hoping. What I think is a bigger, maybe more helpful is like kind of a lifespan perspective. And I would say that I certainly hear from a lot of individuals, whether they are adoptees or they're individuals who have had different, life experiences. So I've worked when I was a speech language pathologist in my first career, like quite a while ago now, back in my 20s. There are lots of people who can feel that the difficulties or challenges, certainly, when you have a different exceptionality within your skill set and how you show up in the world, that can certainly be a reason why there are additional nuances for how you're able to navigate the world around you. And I wouldn't say, I feel like the differentiator between anybody, regardless of what your life story is a choice. Like I firmly believe that it's a choice that you bring to any situation. And certainly there are times when I'm like, wow, it would be nicer if I had an easier choice. But the reality is that you can't control other people, other decisions, right? So it wasn't my decision for what social worker picked up my file. Like, I know that the narrative for adoption is that you were chosen. Really, it's a logistics. It's like I checked a number of boxes. I was the right gender, I was around the right age, because my adoptive parents were quite a bit older when they adopted me, which is also partly why I was selected. And for my adoption agency, this is also part of just the logistics of adoption, is that the agency also has certain relationships with certain orphanages or locations for people, for children. So there's these are part of the mechanics of adoption that people don't really like to think about, because it does disrupt the narrative of being like chosen and this fairy tale. But it's very much like a checklist that I matched. And as far as like being having that resilience or transformation, whatever, that I do really believe it's a choice in any scenario that you're faced with, because I can't choose, or I can't. There's no volition, there's no ability for me to control other people in the world, whether they're on the other side of the world, when I was in Korea, or whether they're in the workplace, right? And you have certain colleagues that might maybe not be as friendly towards you as you would like, or if you're in another environment, there's lots of different environments where there are other external factors. And I just truly believe that to make any kind of leap, in whether it's a quantum leap or just a step in a direction that you're wanting to move forward in, it really comes down to a choice for how you want to navigate and show up in the world. And that's just a core belief that I've had kind of throughout my life. And I think that is a belief that has really helped in knowing that regardless of the scenarios or things around me and what I could attribute to being unfair or feeling like I'm far behind the finish line or the start line, having a lot of different additional factors to consider, what I really think of is like, what's the landscape in front of me, and what are the choices that I have to make, and how do I choose to interpret what's around me, and then what I can choose to pursue moving forward into the future.
That sounds really good. Yes, it seems as though you are more future present than past present. So many people are locked into the past. I can't because my past. I shouldn't because my past. I'm limited because my past. And so the choices we're making for our past that we can't change. But you seem to be you're like, what's ahead of me? I can only choose, going forward, what's in the future. So you sound very future present, a very powerful platform to start from. So let's talk about the future then.
Sure.
So language and speech pathology. Now, hearing your backstory, one may think you may have had a natural inclination to go the way of languages because you started so late, but is that true, or is it something else that happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of certainly my life experience has really shaped how much I value being able to communicate. So because I was 4.5 when I joined my family, the people who adopted me, I only spoke Korean. I did not speak or had not even heard English until I was 4.5. So I know, Dr. Amber, I know you have a little one. And so can you imagine at 4.5, suddenly being transported, she's currently 4.5, right? So can you imagine her being transported maybe, I don't know, to Italy and hearing Italian for the first time and having to figure out her entire world? So when I first came, one of my first memories actually of being here in Canada is understanding that nobody knew what I was saying. Nobody had any idea. Nobody spoke Korean. I definitely didn't speak English. And so that was like a really, like, I think, core memory to know that, wow, being understood and heard is really important. And in that same family, I actually had an aunt. She had very severe cerebral palsy, and she also couldn't speak in the same way that you and I can. There's a really specific voice qualities, dysarthric speech, but she also showed me as an adult, not only as a child, right, but as an adult, being unable to be heard and understood was incredibly impactful. So we talk about the 4 levels of imagination. She had lots of imagination on level 4, lots of ideas, lots of ways that she really wanted to contribute to the world. But she wasn't able to. And it was actually because of watching her, growing up and seeing, how the world also saw and perceived her, that led me to speech pathology as my first career. Because I was like, wow, this is something I can certainly understand, not being able to communicate. But certainly as there are tons of other individuals who need to find and have their voice heard to be seen, to be valued. And so that's really what led me to my first career as a speech scientist, as a speech pathologist. And then following that, in my second career, when I was a policy advisor in the Senate Leadership Office, language and communication, if you want to talk about high stakes, it's passing laws. It's making laws for the country. It's forming international agreements between Canada and the US or Mexico or any other country. Like, communication and language is the core. There's this quote, and anyways, how it goes is that, with effective communication, you can work miracles. Seems like miracles when countries can get along on an agreement, right? Miracles when you can communicate with your spouse or your loved one.
That's right.
Miracles when you can communicate maybe with your children, right? That can also seem like a miracle sometimes. Yeah. So I truly believe that, the ability to truly be able to harness your voice to communicate. And then I saw that within, careers, within individuals, and as they're navigating their careers. And importantly, I saw what happened when they weren't seen and heard. They weren't valued. When they just kept on hitting that ceiling in their career. And you know what? Nobody tells them why. Nobody tells them. Their manager doesn't tell them why. Certainly the CEO, they're not going to tell them. They're busy, right? And we don't learn this stuff in university. Yeah. So what I've seen so often is like high performers, ambitious professionals who, excel in their career. But what gets them to, say, middle management or even into being a director, sometimes even a VP, isn't what then is going to break them into that next true leadership role. That might be a VP role. It might be as a senior director, or certainly within the C-suite. And so there are so many talented people that I've seen who have so many gifts, right? That level 4 imagination.
Yeah.
They aren't able to communicate that value. And
Which is the third level, right? Yeah.
Third level. Yeah. Third level.
Yeah. No, I see that in relationships all the time.
Yes.
So my clients, as a destiny specialist, a life and love specialist, I see people coming and they're thinking, well, what the strategy? What am I missing? And the biggest thing that you're missing is communication. But I love what you said. You said nobody tells you why. Now, in my world, so tell me how it works in your world, because what is needed to get the job is not necessarily what's needed to move to that truth leadership that you said, that true leadership role. And in relationships, we're trained for communication that builds rapport. Well, that's going to get you friend zoned. And I see all these leading ladies. Yes, you have to communicate for connection, not rapport. There are two different types of communication.
Right. Yeah. I'm not as familiar with women being friend zoned, but I guess it's a thing. I guess it's like
lots of my clients. They're professional. They're the best friend. They're the executive person. They ask them for all the advice on the relationship. But can't you see she's like madly in love with you, dude? Like, open your eyes,
Yeah.
And she's frustrated because she's doing all the things, she's being agreeable. She's saying, well, if it were me, I would do this. I like roses. Maybe she likes roses. She's like giving him all the quote unquote hints. But she's blindsided because her communication is for working on a team, for getting along, for getting the job done. It's not for building connection.
Oh, that's so. Yes, you're right. I mean, that's really, you are right. I mean, you can be friend zoned regardless if you're a man or a woman. I'm just more familiar with men being friend zoned, but I'm sure there are lots of women who are also friend zoned. But as far as within careers,
sounds to me like somebody has a lot of options here. Just saying, romantically speaking.
We are on LinkedIn, so professionally, we are going to talk about how communication for connection, though, is also really important in your career. Because just like what you're describing as far as being friend zone, like you can check all the boxes within your career and your role. I was talking to another individual, and I always say, like, if we were collecting check boxes, we'd have like a mansion full of check boxes.
Correct.
Just like all of the check boxes that you're supposed to do, right? Work hard, go to university, get a degree. Dr. Amber, you have your PhD.
Right.
Like just so many check boxes. But it's about the connection that you're able to make as a professional. So I created the executive leadership system because I recognized that individuals didn't know how to communicate their value systematically so that they were heard and seen as a leader and promoted and paid as a leader.
That is correct.
Because there's very different. Because just because you check the boxes and you do a good job, what got you into maybe middle management isn't what then gets you into leadership. And the challenge is, again, nobody tells you. So the first step within the executive leadership system is getting noticed, to get noticed and actually be on the radar in the capacity of being a leader. Not
Correct.
just a good soldier, not a good frontline soldier who's good at like collating the reports, who's reliable for setting up meetings, who can take notes. You have to get noticed in the right way to be seen as a leader.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this. That is the first step. Even with dating, it's the first step. Tell us more. Tell us more about your system.
Yeah, because what happens is, unless you're noticed in the context of being seen as a leader, you're just passed up and you don't understand why. You go through this promotion cycle again where you're like, wow, again, I'm not being promoted. And people end up living a Groundhog Day, essentially. But it's
Correct.
a year. There was one individual I worked with, it was 4 years. 4 years of just trying to get noticed and be on the radar before I started working with her.
And you were talking about the 4 levels of value.
Yes.
In our world, we do that too. And the first 2 levels are implementation. And then the next one is where you get more information. So that's unification. So when something hasn't worked, you've been the coffee girl, the meetings girl, the executive who can collate all the reports. You have all the knowledge. They call you in all the meetings to make all the presentations. And when you don't get seen, you don't get heard, you say, well, obviously I need more education, right? So you go do another course. You become even more skilled. And then you implement that. And that makes a spiral between unification, implementation, unification, implementation, unification. And that's a downward spiral.
Yeah, it is. Because you're not working higher, you're not working smarter, you're just working harder. Because you're just collecting more check boxes. What you realize is you need an entirely new list of boxes to check. It's not just about, so first, what I find is people get noticed, which is the first step. So important. So they're no longer invisible. So they're no longer essentially shouting into the wind, hoping that somebody sees them. But it's about getting noticed. And then the second step, because once they're noticed, sometimes people don't know what to do with the spotlight. They don't know. They freeze. I hear from some people, they worked so hard to lead this meeting, to be chosen as the project lead, the country lead, right? If they're deploying a new initiative, to be the individual who's leading the charge on that new initiative. But they get to that meeting or they get to that launch and they freeze, even though they know this, but they're not used to actually being in that spotlight. So the second step is importantly about being able to command respect. And it's about your brand and having a knowing for yourself, which is part of it, that you should be in that role. But it's the brand that you have professionally to establish who you are so that other people can see what you're presenting out. It's not just you have gotten lucky. No, it's that you have shown up, you know that you can deliver, and you deliver on whatever it is for that initiative. But then what happens though sometimes is, what I know, the key differentiator is for people, it's not just about what people say when you're in the room, like when you are leading in that board meeting or maybe an interview with the news, like with CNN or CBC. What's really important is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Because that is when decisions are made. That's when companies decide who to hire, right? When they're looking at the final list of candidates, that's when companies decide who to promote, who gets that bonus, and even who is given that opportunity to lead on an initiative that's going to set them up for promotion. So it's this third step for developing authority so that you can have the authority, which really is a network, a chorus of people that are championing you in your name in all the rooms and all the conversations that you aren't physically in. And that's why that third step is so important. Because you, as an individual, you can only be in so many meetings at once, even if we have all these AI bots and note takers and whatever else in all the different rooms that we're in. The truth is, you, as Amber Joy, as an executive, as an ambitious professional, can only occupy one space at a time.
Yes.
So what you need is a whole network of people who are championing you so that you become the go-to person, so that you're not sitting there shouting, hoping that you're heard, hoping that you have other people supporting you in your career and ambitions, but strategically knowing that there's a system so that you can create this network, this chorus, this army of people who have you at the top of the list. That's why.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I see so many parallels for the world of dating, but so many parallels that fit so many boxes. And so I want to say we're on LinkedIn. If you are a professional and you feel stuck, then which one of these are you missing? Or is it all of them? You know, sometimes we're not missing every element of every step. I may have some people in my network. Heck, I'm on LinkedIn. You know, I may have some presence. That's how come I got to the middle managerial level. You know, I do have some presence. And, you know, I may be noticed by one or two people. My superior keeps putting my name on the list. And so I may be speaking to somebody who you're thinking, Leah, but everything you said, I have some of. Well, there's a question I like to ask in my world. And how has that been working for you?
Yeah. If you just have a sprinkling, but you don't have the depth, you need to have the whole system to know. Because that's why, just as you said, Amber, is you can sometimes get kind of there, get to maybe middle management, and you feel like it's working. Everything they told me to do, I'm doing it and it's working. And now I'm in middle management. But if you fast forward 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and you're in the exact same position, in the exact same role, and you haven't moved, suddenly you realize that there are some cracks because you haven't gone deep enough to actually create this entire system together. You've just dabbled. You've just dabbled along all these things to skim the surface.
Yeah, I see that with dating all the time. There's a lovely lady. We have some gents too, but a lovely lady. She commands the room when she comes in. When she sits down, there is somewhat of a brand, but then when we go deep into conversation, it kind of fizzles out and we begin to get into that self-doubt. And I don't know if I really belong in this room. I don't know if I really belong with you and all of that. Guys, you're dating this ideal job. You're dating this ideal position. So you've got to date it properly. But I get so much resistance sometimes from the professional who says, but I've got the sprinkling. Well, you have to have the depth. So tell us, Leah, how can a professional who's been in the role, who's a gentleman, a boss, like a fire CEO who was up and coming and thought she'd have done the thing, had the chair, had the role by now, and somehow keeps getting passed over by people who she knows do not have the experience, do not have the expertise, hey, she's a queen of ticking boxes. She's ticked every single box. And she wants to know, how do I break through? Are you doing anything? Is there anything coming up? How can they begin to find out more about?
So such an important question. And, I'd be happy to invite people to, a seminar that I have coming up. But what I also wanted to really touch upon is the last step within the executive leadership system.
You mean there's more? Come on, lay it on us.
This is Dr. Amber Joy, this is so important because this step is about getting promoted and paid.
And that's the point.
So getting paid. And having also, what I also know for a lot of executives is they just feel like their influence and authority is not being recognized and heard. And so they're not getting promoted. They're not getting paid. And they can feel, because they've been in this hamster wheel, this Groundhog Day, for years, their bills are still piling up. It's not like inflation suddenly stops because you're not getting promoted. It's not like whether you have a family, right? The goals that you have, maybe it's a new car, maybe it's a family vacation. those goals and aspirations you still have are still present. And so what I sometimes see with individuals is like we mentioned, they sprinkle in different pieces and maybe they'll get an opportunity, but the compensation, when they look at that offer across my decade in executive coaching and hiring, I've seen lots of offers. When they look at that offer, it's missing some zeros. And they're wondering, this is, okay, so now I'm being the CTO or whatever. They're in the C-suite, or they finally have that VP role or senior director role. And they look at that offer and they're wondering, why is it even less than my current role? How is this even possible? Sometimes what happens is people can say, oh, candidate X, Y, and Z, this is a great opportunity for you. So the exchange is, because we're giving you this opportunity for a new title bump, we'll just test you out with this compensation. And so what I know, if a company really either wants to keep you or wants to hire you, both. So if you're looking to get promoted in your company or start in a new opportunity, they're going to find the money. They always will. They always do. They might have to talk and get additional approvals from additional departments, have more conversations, which is depending on the seniority of the role you want. Sometimes those roles can be a much longer conversation because they need more approval. But that's why that final step is so important, to get promoted and paid. Because that exchange of your title, suddenly you get a title bump, it should not come at the cost of having to negotiate what your compensation is. And importantly, your fulfillment. I speak to so many executives. They have ambitious professionals. They have so many gifts and ideas that they want to share, but they're just not able to grow a team, mentor, the next generation of people that they really would like to, or share their vision, maybe within leading the marketing division, right? And all the transformations that are happening with the marketing, or leading a country launch, right? And feeling like there's all this resistance because they don't have the role and kind of authority that's built in to their professional brand. And so having that sense of fulfillment, our work is so many hours within our week. We spend so much of our time working. So being able to have a job and be in a role that's like professionally fulfilling, personally fulfilling, and that is also giving you opportunities for the rest of your career. And what I've seen effectively is when people are able to really integrate and apply the executive leadership system, they never have to apply for a job again, because they have the brand and authority, so that suddenly, as an executive search consultant, which I've done a lot of executive searches, they're at the top of the list for their industry, not only within their company, but their industry at large. And that's how they never have to apply for a job again. They do, as an asterisk, I do like to clarify, still have to interview.
Sure.
They don't have to apply again. Mm-hmm.
Man, this is good stuff across so many levels.
Yeah.
I really want to speak to the LinkedIn professional out there. That Leah's interview today is your answer to the heavens, the universe, the God above. I mean, you don't know who or what else to speak to. The water, the stars, the moon. You're wanting to call Einstein back to life to answer this question for you. How do I break the ceiling? Well, there you have it. 4 steps. And you don't have to do it alone. I mean, Leah, are you able to share any examples with us of people who, applied your system and had breakthrough? What does that look like?
Yeah. So there was one individual. She had worked locally within a very large gallery here, we'll say. In Toronto is our largest country in Canada, and had been in a senior director role, had been in a senior role, in a leadership role, not within the C-suite, but had really wanted to break through, had seen that there was an opening in her current company to be the CEO. So to ascend her career. And also, as a note, as far as boxes checked, this person also had their PhD. So it's not as though they were missing the credentials, right?
And I am sure that after the PhD, she did work. She did other courses. She did other. Ask me how I know.
Yes, all of the check boxes.
Yeah.
But just couldn't be recognized, didn't have the brand, wasn't seen, wasn't noticed in that first step, right? Within the system, wasn't noticed and seen as a leader at that level. A leader to be a director, right? You know, to lead some part of the team, but not as the CEO, right? Not truly like sharing the vision that they had for the team, the company. And so when I started working with this individual, there was an opportunity to be the CEO of the National Art Gallery of Canada. This is appointed by cabinet, by the Prime Minister's office. This is like a federally appointed role. There's one in the entire country. It's kind of like the Smithsonian, I think, when I was thinking about it, because you have like that is your national kind of art institution, right? You might have the Met or some other things like locally within states or cities. The Smithsonian is, you know, in Washington.
Yes.
This
is the Louvre.
Yeah. We're going to go across to another country, another continent.
Yes, more internationally acclaimed, the Smithsonian, the Louvre, okay? This is the level.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Beautiful art everywhere, which I love. Oh, I love art so much. But so there was this opportunity and this person wasn't sure, right? They were like, wow, I have been told for years that I'm not ready, that I don't have the authority or the influence or right? Which is why they hadn't ascended as the CEO within their current organization.
So one question of point of clarity, told by whom?
Well, I'd say the message is pretty clear. If you have not been promoted in your current company, it means that there are people within your current network who might say that they see you all of the nice accolades, but the proof is in the pudding. The proof is, have you been given that promotion? The proof is, are you being given that pay raise? The proof is, are you given the additional stock options, the bonus, the 401k matching, you know, the RSP matching? Like there's a whole compensation package that is part of, you know, what that looks like.
Absolutely.
And if the words, you know, you can walk the walk, if you can talk the talk, but if you're not walking the walk, it doesn't matter. Because again, inflation hasn't stopped, right? The bills haven't stopped.
Your student loans on your last postdoc, whatever.
Right. And the desire to maybe go on that family vacation, buy that family car, right? Maybe get that family cottage. Like
even get married. For some of my clients, it's even to relax enough to get married.
Yes. Yeah. Just to get married, right? So all of these different milestones that people would like to accomplish, they're tied to, in part, your career and your financial abilities, right? So I worked with this person throughout the interview process. And guess what? They were hired. They were hired and appointed as the CEO of the National Art Gallery of Canada, which would be the CEO of, we'll say, the Smithsonian or the Louvre, if we're going to go back to France. And it was such an amazing feeling of accomplishment for this person to know that suddenly they finally had the authority, they had the influence, they had the network, right? They were able to apply all these pieces within the system to get hired. And it changed that person's, not their life and career, but their whole family. Removed, right? They relocated to the capital. They had all of these opportunities open up. And I often say for the people that I work with, it's not just about your next job, obviously get hired, but importantly, it's about your next job. That's the key. And it's the underlying all of it is how you communicate your value. How do you communicate in a way so that you're actually seen and heard as a leader, as a thought leader, as an industry leader, and as somebody who's trusted to often manage several millions or more within a division or a company, what is being decided. So it was transformative.
Yeah, that is the definition of a transilience. That is transilience, when you can quantum jump.
Yeah.
Where you can jump the line. Because I think that, Leah, from what you're describing, without you, it would have been a year in, year out, same reviews, same news, same compensation. You said she was being told. We're talking about the actions of the organization, but all of us have been there in corporate where you're told by the manager, by the supervisor, oh, you're not there yet. We just want you to do X, Y, Z. Take this course, get more prepared. And you go do that stuff. And then still, it's not forthcoming. It's
Yeah.
still not, guys, I don't know about you, but what Leah is speaking about is like everywhere. You know it because you've lived it.
Mhm. Yeah.
I want to encourage you to make a transcendence jump, make a leap right now, a quantum leap from where you are to where you know you were always destined to be.
Mhm.
And sometimes the truth is you can't do that alone. You know, I was speaking with someone today. She's a guru strategist of communication,
Mhm.
actually. And she was saying so many people don't want anyone to know that they have a coach.
Right.
And she was saying, you know, Amber, that's just where we are, and that's okay. But so many people who have success, guess what they have?
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody knows a
Mhm.
coach.
Well, I always, how I describe it is I love the Olympics. I love athleticism at that level. And can you imagine if there was an Olympian who got on the podium and didn't have a coach? Can you think of one Olympic medalist or even qualifying for the Olympics, just qualifying for which is phenomenal. And any Olympian who got to the Olympics at that level in their career without a coach. And I also often think about there are those like those big fancy horses, Clydesdale horses, they're beautiful, right? You see them often in like parades and everywhere else. And so just the power of a coach or somebody who's on your team. So those Clydesdale horses, when they're by themselves, they can pull, I think, like 7,000 pounds or something. They're incredibly strong. I mean, look, they're just majestic. They're just so strong. But when there are two Clydesdale horses pulling the same carriage, they can suddenly pull, I think it's like 24,000 pounds, like 18,000 pounds. It's a multiple. It's not an additive, like it's not like just 14,000, but it's a multiplying effect for how much more they can pull when there are two of them. And that's the power transcendent, right? What you're talking about. That's the quantum leap that you can take when you have a coach who's in your corner, who's telling you how to avoid, I call them the rings of fire, right?
Hey,
Don't
we're gonna line them up like in 5, 3, and then 2. But you don't have to get burned by them. You can go through each one,
or you can go around them, or you can go through a totally different door and avoid them altogether, right? And that's just the power of being able to have people who can tell you the way, right? And I would say, I've been in coaching and communication for 15 years, right? For the most recent decade, I ran my agency. I've hired and worked with so many ambitious professionals. And this is just what I've seen are the people who really are able to accelerate their careers and have the life that they want, give their families the life that they also want. They, behind the scenes, like you just said, whether they want to admit it publicly or not, often have that coach so they can be the Olympians on the podium to get that gold.
And I think that it's important to note that for professionals like Leah and myself who are in this world, our job is not to steal anybody's limelight. We actually don't want it. We're really happy to be in the background and let you go. You go do your thing. I have a lot of that in my world. A lot of people don't want anyone to know that they're on a journey of love, or that when they found it that they had help, and that's okay. That's what a good love strategist matchmaker does. And Leah, I know that it's the same in your world, that there's confidentiality. A lot of people are concerned about confidentiality. It's not that they don't want to say that they have a coach. It is, will my stuff, it's highly competitive. The role is highly visible. It's the exposure. It's the risk of exposure. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
That is such a great point. And confidentiality is at the core. I mean, it's the underpinning of all of the work that I've done. I mean, certainly, also when you work in federal, like in the Senate leadership office, everything is like cabinet secret, the highest level of secret clearance, to be very honest. So confidentiality is incredibly important. And whether it's like ambitious executives or professionals looking to get their career, and then also, even in my first career, when I was a speech scientist, the confidentiality of my patients, and like the work and experiences that they were going through, whether they just had a stroke or, whether they were younger and, were trying to grapple with some things with autism or Down syndrome or whatever else. So confidentiality is so important. And that's such a great point and important to recognize.
That's built in. Yes, so many. I think that what I'm wanting to communicate here to your LinkedIn audience and to my LinkedIn audience and to everybody else watching is that the confidentiality is built in. We understand that we are holding space for your dream, whether it's a corporate C-suite role dream, in my world, whether it's a love dream. We understand that this is sacred ground, and we hold it with that degree of professional finesse and sanctity, I think, is what I think we live in a world where so many people have betrayed our trust and stamped on what was sacred to us that we give a little pause before being willing to open up. My deep, deep desire was when I came to this company, I wanted to be the chief executive. When I walked through the doors for the first time, I knew that was my goal. And the truth is, over time, I've just been battered down so many times. But this conversation that you've been having today, Leah, it's been making me dream of it again. It's been stirring my heart to that original desire again. And now I can't hide from myself the truth that I'm not living up to my fullest potential.
Yeah. And that's where a coach comes in, right? That's where a coach comes in to help remind you of your gift, right? From the world, or maybe your environment, whatever that environment might be, is maybe telling you lies about who you actually are. And
a lie identity,
and being buried under that after years. And a coach can really help as far as helping to remind yourself of your brilliance, of your abilities, of what's possible. Because I know with so many ambitious individuals who I work with, they have incredible gifts. And it's simply about helping them uncover them so that they can be noticed, seen, promoted, and paid.
And I just want to add one thing to that, and then please do share with my Transilience audience, your LinkedIn, my LinkedIn, everywhere. I just want to add one thing to that before you tell us how to make contact, Leah, because I think it's so needed. There's a difference between good people, great people who would listen to you and share your dreams. We need those. That's one category. And then there's another category of people who do that and hold brilliant, amazing space for your heart and your dreams, but then who actually know what to do.
Yes. It's about having that roadmap and knowing how to actually execute to get the result.
Correct.
To get to the destination you actually want. Versus
Correct.
waking up and being like, I thought I was heading to Hawaii, and why am I in Alaska?
Exactly. Not only that, there's another level where this person who holds big space for your dreams, hopes, and aspirations, and who also knows what to do, can also discern what parts of that process you've already got down. So you're not just by rote doing somebody's program and wasting valuable time. You want someone like Leah who has a very fine, acutely fine-tuned, acutely intimate understanding of how corporate works, America, UK, US, at the highest levels, and understand, okay, this is where you're coming in. You already have this part. In step 1, you're missing these 5 elements. In step 2, you're missing these 2. In step 3, well, honey, you ain't got nothing in there. we gotta really focus on that one, And in step 4, well, once we get these outlined, we just add this and this, and you're there. So it's not a one size fits all. And I think that is the highest rung of strategists, coaches who get results, but not just get results in 30 years. Everybody will kind of get results in 30. Well, no. Most people will get results in 30 years. If most people in their lifetime are millionaires. Over the span of working 40, 60 years, they make $1 million. But that's not, do you want to make it on your deathbed? No. You want that role now.
Yeah.
And so a transilience coach is one like Leah Brighton, who could help you legitimately collapse time. There's not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a proven, repeatable, itemized, tweakable, uniquely framed around you system to get you from where you are on the corporate ladder to where you know you were always meant to be.
Yeah.
And so if that is for you, then I say you need to contact Leah. Like right away. Like send messages, like DM, like LinkedIn message her now, connect. If she's not one of yours, make her your first. If you're a third connection, write a letter, contact her now. Okay, Leah, let me be, but guys, but I'm serious though. I'm serious.
Yeah.
So how do individuals facing the reality of everything we spoke about today, how do they make contact? What are you doing? What have you got coming up?
Yeah. Well, I would love to be able to help individuals finally be heard, be seen, and be paid. And so it's a free seminar. It's a seminar that's upcoming. It's somewhere on the link. We'll post a link somewhere around here, and you can join. I'm compressing essentially 15, almost 20 years from my master's across all these careers, all of the different individuals who I've worked with, to share with you the playbook and how this system actually works so that you can truly be seen and heard and really have the career and opportunities that you deserve and that you truly want.
Amazing. A little 4.5-year-old distraction there, but amazing.
We'll get an early start for her.
Yes. Early start. So yeah, guys, the link will be in my show notes. I know that Leah will have the link here in her LinkedIn. It will be in my LinkedIn. We'll make sure that you have all the ways, those watching the replay, we'll make sure that you can get hold of. You said, I want to help people be seen, be heard, and be paid.
Yeah.
Powerful. Guys, isn't it time? I want to ask you, isn't it time that you were seen, that you were heard, and you were paid? We're living an old year, 2024, and we're going into 2025. If not now, when?
Yeah.
If not with Leah, with whom?
Yeah.
The choice. We started this talking about her choice for transilience. Leah said that she couldn't control what somebody halfway across the world did, what file her caseworker picked up, how many boxes she ticked for that caseworker on that day for that agency. But she could have controlled her choice and looked straight down the future and go get it.
Yeah.
There's an old African proverb, and we close with this. They say, if you want to go fast, go alone. Well, I want to say, has that been true for you? You've been going alone. Have you gone fast? They say, and if you want to go far, go together. Guys, I want to let you know that with Leah, you'll have the opportunity to go fast and far from where you are to your dream. So make that contact today.
Dr. Amber-Joy, it was such a pleasure. I always enjoy our conversations. Thank you so much for taking the time and having me on your show.
And thank you so much for letting us get some insight into what motivates you and fuels you to help people be seen, so important, be heard, and then to really live by getting paid, be paid. Thank you so much, Leah. And we wish you all the best on all the buckets of places where you do life, in the NGO world and in the professional world. We wish you every success. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye for now.